Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of the Left Wing Live. I am Tony Whitehead, Jr. at Power is Taken, Not Given. Joined as always by my co-host, John Cooper from PowerPoint Politics. Fuck it, let me do that intro all over again. I fucked up like every other word, like I've never done this before. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of the Left Wing Live. I am TJ Whitehead, Power is Taken, Not Given, joined as always by my fantastic co-host, John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm sorry, TJ. Did you not only get my screen name wrong? Did you get your own first name wrong? Is
No.
Your first name not Tony J something Whitehead?
No, my name is Tony Whitehead. Yeah, I fucked up in the beginning. I said, "Welcome to the Left Wing Live." I don't even caught that, but once I started off incorrectly there, it was downhill from then. And then I for some reason I couldn't get TJ Whitehead out, so I was like Tony Whitehead, Power's Taken, Not Given, joined by my host John. Yeah, it was a shit show from the beginning, but yeah, let's just hope it's better from here on out. How you doing, man?
We got there eventually, TJ. I'm doing good. Yeah. Today's been a weird day. Have you felt just weird vibes in the air? It's been a weird day for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's day's kind of strange. I was actually in a really good place for a few minutes because the last time I did the show, my room, my studio was a mess. And you know when the studio's a mess, you kind of feel bad. And I wasn't firing on all cylinders, and it felt pretty good. Then you probably can't even notice it because when this stuff happens to you, you just kind of over amplify it. But I was trimming my facial hair and I trimmed it way too low, and so it's like I got like an 8 o'clock shadow going on right here, and it's like the lowest my facial hair. I had the setting on too low and I realized it, but it was a big stripe here, so I had to kind of trim it all down. In a week it'll be fine, but feeling kind of self-conscious about it, so it is feeling weird for me.
Yeah, well, we got here. We are with friends. We're with Heather, who's cheering us on. Thank you very much, Heather. Heather's one of our most consistent viewers. I always appreciate her here.
We do.
Heather, genuinely, when I don't see your claps on a Wednesday or a Thursday, it makes my day worse. So that's.
We appreciate the consistent support from everybody. Oh, I wonder if we have super chats back now. Because we have monetization back,
right, yeah.
Do we gotta turn that on? We should check that when we go to the main page to see
if anyone happens to own a hamburger distributor and wants to check to see if the super chats are active, please let us know.
Oh shit! Look, we got. Sorry. Well, you know what? Mark says, TJ, please, you look great. Not as good as John, but still, you know what? I will take the compliment, Mark. I will take it. Thank you very
Mark,
much.
When I'm as old as TJ, I hope to look half as good as him.
All right, so. And of course, I can still got it. So, all right, I wanted to hop right into this one, John, because for those of you who are kind of new to the program, I mean, new as in, I don't know, the last year or so, in the old days of the show, we had this recurring theme that we began to notice that whenever we did videos on Vivek Ramaswamy, we always got a shitload of views. It was like one of our most reliable topics to get support. And I've got another one. Now, have you heard about this, John? I told you what the title was. I don't know if you heard about it yet.
I had not. I'm very excited to see this because I had not heard about it. And usually, I don't know, I don't actually have Google alerts set for Vivek Ramaswamy, but I'm always have my eyes peeled for Vivek news for the specific reason that you mentioned. And I didn't see anything about it today.
All right. Well, I saw it, I think, at lunchtime at work. So I'm going to prep this. Essentially, the story that we're going to be covering is a Turning Point USA event. And I think it was in Ohio. And Vivek Ramaswamy was speaking there, and he was confronted by some people about his religion. Now, before I share that, I want to post this quick little video. This is something that Vivek Ramaswamy, he had his, I don't know how many there are, his 7 or 8 undeniable truths of reality. You know what? Now think about it. Rush Limbaugh had something like this. I remember when I was a kid, Rush Limbaugh had a book, and the book was about some cold, hard, incontrovertible facts of reality you need to face. The one that I remember was true, and the one was that this world is governed by the aggressive use of force. I was like, that's correct. It is. If you have the power, you are going to make all the rules. That's true. Of course, Rush Limbaugh was a demon and he wanted to use it in the worst ways possible. But these are Vivek Ramaswamy's, and I bring it up because they're very important to the topic we're going to discuss today. So let's see what his cold, hard facts of life are.
If I gave you a speech and said these things in 1990 because this would have been too obvious. Now the risk is, if I say some of these things, they might be too controversial, that God is real, or that there are two.
I want to pause it. The first one is God is real. That's the important part here. But I love that conservatives do this thing where they say, oh, what I'm about to tell you is some real shit. I mean, you can't even say this stuff anymore. This stuff is going to get me canceled. And they just hype themselves up and say the same fucking banal shit every conservative says every single day, and they will never shut up about it. I don't know how they can live with themselves with this, but all right.
Because I want to address that because
yeah,
you're
sure.
100% correct. I saw a TikTok then. It was like, yo, how if atheists don't think that God is real, how come they get triggered when we tell them that we think they're going to hell? And I'm like, we don't. We laugh at you, maybe. It is, and it's also an unfalsifiable claim. A hard truth is an unfalsifiable claim. I just love that because he knows what he's doing. Like he's smart enough to know how ridiculous that sounds, but he does it anyway because it fucking butters his bread.
Yeah, half of these truths are going to be opinions, and we're definitely going to cover that. And the thing about the Christians, before we forget, since we're going to talk about the Christians anyway, is well, not necessarily just Christians in general, but you guys know who we're talking about when we say, the Christians here. The ones who, like, another question they'll ask is, well, so you guys say you don't believe in God, but I think you do, because you seem to hate him. I mean, I don't see you guys complaining about unicorns or tooth fairies or anything like that, as if legislation is being passed in honor of the tooth fairy, or, the billions of dollars aren't given to tooth fairy adjacent organization and withhold money for people who don't believe in the tooth fairy, that your lives are being shit. I just can't believe how fucking disingenuous that comment is. And they always say it. How's it going, Kyle? Good to see you. We got some inner comments, conversations going on here. I love it. Kyle says, I don't complain about God. I complain about their false theology. Yeah, well, I think false theology is kind of I'm not going to get into that, but redundancy maybe, but I don't know. But when I was saying that, you can study theology, like studying the origins of myths and God and everything. But all right, let's get to the actual topic. Vivek Ramaswamy.
1990 because this would have been too obvious. Now the risk is, if I say some of these things, they might be too controversial, that God is real, or that there are two genders. Never thought I'd have to say that one. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents are the ones who determine the education of their children. The nuclear family isn't a bad word. It is the greatest form of governance known to mankind, and we should not apologize for it. Capitalism is still the best system we have to lift us up from poverty. There's 3 branches of government in the United States of America, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution is still the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. And we will not apologize for that truth. That is who we are as Americans.
Okay, so I wanted to preface that for everyone just so they know exactly what we're talking about here. But John, while I'm pulling that clip up, what are your thoughts? Tell the folks the thoughts on what old Vivek.
Do you have a list of what those 10 are? Because it'd be helpful to have them in front of my face while I do this. I think it is very appropriate that this list starts with God is real. Because when he says truth, he's not talking about truth in the sense that you or I know it to be. He's not talking about something which can be tested and verified using evidence. He's talking about things you believe to be true. Like that is what he means by truth. He means truth in the biblical sense. It is just opinions that you aren't going to change your mind about, no matter how much evidence is presented to you. And by that definition of truth, sure, these are all true things, except are they? Because there's a couple in here that I'm not sure would even hold up under to like conservative standards. God is real, sure. It's very I'm sure we're going to get to it, how he doesn't say what God or which God. But there are two genders. Scientifically, and like, even if you're going with like biology and sex, like there are intersex people. They just exist. I'm sorry, they just exist. And if you're going to tell me, oh, we're talking about gender, not sex, go fuck yourself. You also tell me the opposite.
Right.
Number 3, human flourishing requires fossil fuels. That's not a complete statement. Like, you can't believe that like
absurd
200
statement.
years from now we're still going to be using fossil fuels.
Or
like,
that human beings never flourished until fossil fuels were discovered. Societies never flourished, go ahead.
Most if we survive this, even if we don't survive this, no matter what, fossil fuels are going to be a blip in human history, a very, very small blip. 4, reverse racism is racism. You don't really believe in racism, but like I from their understanding, I also agree that is true. An open border is no border. That's dumb. That means we didn't have countries for most of our human existence because we had open border policies for most of this country's existence. That's just, again, true. Parents determine the education of their children. Fuck no, they don't. You don't even fucking think that. You want to control the education system just as much as we do. And is also dumb. Why should a child have a bad education because their parent didn't want to give them a good one? 7, the nuclear family's greatest form of governance known to mankind. That's weird to call that governance. Go ahead,
yeah, it is weird. I wanted to hit the parent one real quick too.
Yeah.
That said, parents determine the education of their children. That statement is partially true, but only partially true because of course, the parents educate the children. Now, like when you're growing up with your family, they're going to teach and you're going to learn long before school actually begins. Of course, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about parents should get to decide exactly what is taught in school, and to some extent they do, but only to some extent because your parents most likely are not education professionals. Your parents don't know exactly what you need to know to be a functioning member of society and exactly how that curriculum should be set up. It doesn't know how to cater to the needs of different students. It doesn't know how to prepare you. They don't know how to prepare you for college. And so conservatives have this conservatives live in this universe in which children are just the property of their parents and an actual extension of them. So I'm going to raise my kids to be a carbon copy of me, and I don't want them exposed to any ideas. I don't want them to learn any more about society. I just want to pass on the same stuff that I learned. So they're a mini version of me, which is not how education works. It never has.
It's interesting because the people who believe these things, like they can't comprehend the reason that these two things are being argued. They just feel like it's true, but like it's kind of arguing against the entire concept of communalism. Like it's arguing, hey, we need to have these core nuclear families that determine everything about these children and how they're raised. People are not part of a broader community. They are not, we don't have a responsibility to others, even though there's many conservative beliefs that will directly go against this. Like, for example, like, oh, if we have too many immigrants come to Pennsylvania, it won't be Pennsylvania anymore. As long as your nuclear family is still your nuclear family. Isn't that all that fucking matters? But anyway, I digress. Were you saying something, DJ?
Oh, no. Yeah, the nuclear family one is a strange one, too, because that's brand new. It's brand new in human history. It is. It's now, and most people probably don't know that. The propaganda that's been put forth that this system in which you have a mom and a dad and a couple of kids in one dwelling, and that is the extent of the family. Anything else is, an ancillary or additional extra family that you might see on weekends or holidays or road trips. Throughout most of human history, families lived in large groups. You had 3 generations staying under the same roof, or at least in the same general area, and kids were raised by everyone in the community. And so the nuclear family came about as an adaptation to industrialization and capitalism in the last really 150 years or so, probably less than that, probably like 100 years, honestly. And the fact that any divergence from that is seen as an act of aggression or an attack against tradition or against good and respectable and uplifting values is a bit of propaganda that's going to take a long time for us to get over because most people just assume that's the case.
And it is one of those weird things where it's just like, no one's stopping you from, like, no one wants to stop you from having a nuclear
Yeah.
family. Like, if you want to live your life like that, there's not a single person on the left who's telling you that you can't. They're just mad that other people might want
Yes.
to try something else.
Yes, that's 100% true. Whenever you hear Republicans say that they are pro-family, they are pro one particular type of family. If they had it their way, every family would be a straight, white, Christian, heteronormative family. Anything beyond that is seen as an attack on the nation. Interracial families, queer families, single-parent homes, and stuff like just anything that doesn't fit in like some Leave It to Beaver ass style system that they set up and pretending that that's the way God dictated it must be. Which is funny because that's not even true in the Bible. God doesn't even dictate that's the way families must be, and they just kind of take it upon themselves to assume so.
Capitalism lifts people. Let's finish this off because capitalism lifts people up out of poverty is one of those things where, yeah, it's kind of true, but you're not like that. That's the mod, and you're not defending the because the Bailey to that is capitalism is therefore the best system of government, is the best economic system, which doesn't make sense. Feudalism or mercantilism was better than feudalism. That it lifted more people out of poverty than feudalism did. Doesn't mean mercantilism was the best we could have done.
Yeah, and there are 3 branches of government, not 4. That one.
What do they mean by that?
I think that's a deep state reference. That's either a deep state reference or a media reference. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure. Well, it's one of the two.
Anyone argue on the left that there's 4 branches of government? So.
That's going to be our new calling card here. We're going to argue for four systems, 4 branches of government, including the deep state included. We're deep state shills. And number 10, the U.S. Constitution is the strongest guarantor of freedom in American history. This one you can't eat. Go ahead.
Not God, by the way, who is real.
Well,
not
yes,
God,
God,
it's the U.S. Constitution.
Well, God left it up to us, of course. You know, God, lazy as usual, not doing the work himself and leaving it to human beings to fix the fucking mess that he made. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to wait until 1789, and then they're going to figure out this whole freedom thing. Also, the word freedom is just so fucking nebulous and useless. Like, what does that mean? The largest guarantor of freedom. Tell me what you mean by freedom. It's kind of weird how long it doesn't really work as well as it used to. The United States got away with this country is great because we have freedom, as if you travel to, I don't know, Luxembourg, you're not going to have a pretty similar set of freedoms. You know, some you won't have, some you might have extra, but it's not like everyone in every other country is living in a fucking gulag.
It is funny too because it's kind of like admitting failure too because it's like, we haven't created a better system in 300 fucking years than the one these long dead racist dudes came up with. That was the best we could have done. We have not been able to improve it. Everyone else has sucked since then. That's the pinnacle of human freedom.
Yeah, and even Thomas Jefferson, to be specific, said, yeah, these are some good ideas. I think that in fact, Jefferson's going to come from this video. I think that we got ourselves a good start here, but we should redo this every now and then. Like Jefferson said, every 19 years, they need to scrap the Constitution and start over because he correctly surmised that as society, American society continues to progress, they're going to run across problems we didn't foresee. They're going to find out answers that we didn't even know to ask the question to. And he compared future generations following the strict set of rules set by his generation to a man wearing a child's coat. He says that doesn't make any sense. And unfortunately, we didn't have that. Because if you ask me, the fact that we still have the framework of our Constitution as the same one they wrote in 1789 with amendments along the way is kind of ridiculous. Like I think we discussed this once, that every law that was passed by Congress before women could vote in 1920 start all over and go from there. And then hell, you could bump it up forward even to the civil rights movement, to when like black people were actually granted the actual rights that they had on paper. In reality, that
Americans have only been equal for 60 years.
Yeah.
Only 60 years of our history have they been equal. And you're telling me that is the greatest guarantor of freedom in human history?
Yeah. Like, black people had civil rights for 17 years when I was born. What does that tell you right there? I mean, like, my folks grew up and were born and raised and were adults in a nation in which they didn't have civil rights. So yeah, which is funny if you go back and watch. It's like Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan in 1989 is saying that the problem that we have are these welfare queens and young bucks driving Cadillacs, clear racial coding, that this is all black people's fault. Black people had civil rights for like 11 years. For like 11 years. And Ronald Reagan was already saying they are the source of our problems. Republicans bought it, and they still do. So this is the video that I was referencing. So this is at a Turning Point USA event. And Vivek Ramaswamy is allowing the crowd to ask questions, and this man comes up here and says that he's got a problem with Vivek Ramaswamy not being upfront about his religious beliefs.
Throughout the course of the lecture, you talked an awful lot about God and faith, and there were some men that come up here and they asked you about your Hindu religion, but my suspicion is if they didn't mention that, you would have omitted who that God was throughout the course of the entire lecture. And most of the people in this room here would leave thinking you were talking about the only true God, Jesus Christ. And God has a name, and Hinduism is a wicked pagan religion. And it's completely incompatible with America. Most everyone in this entire room is a Christian. They believe in Jesus Christ. And you've attempted to create this parallel, however tenuously, between Christian principles, Christian moral principles, and these Hindu values. And you look in sacred scripture and you see that all the gods of the Gentiles are devils, and there's only one name under heaven that can give you salvation. So my big question is, and you've talked about being forthright and transparent, my suspicion is that you would have omitted who that God was when you were speaking here tonight, had you not explicitly been asked about Hinduism. So my challenge, I guess, to you going forward would be to say who this God is. Is it Wahaguru, the one that was blasphemously prayed to at the RNC? Is it one of these other Hindu deities, or is it our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? So that's my question and challenge to you going forward.
It's a
All right, so before we listen to his response here, I want to say one thing, John, and I want to get your opinion on this guy's question. The first question I have is, Vivek, how often do the leopards have to eat your face? How often? Like, how many times are you going to just walk into the leopard cage at the zoo? It's like, well, I'm sure they won't attack me this time, because this is not his first rodeo when it comes to this.
I love how, as you're bringing up, first of all, I learned recently that leopards eating your face is a tweet. It is not.
Holy shit.
It is not some like tried and true, dyed in the wool, like just classic example of a logical fallacy. It is like a tweet from like 2015.
John,
did you know that?
John, that's so funny you say that, because I was visiting a friend over this weekend and I was talking to them about the leopards, and they were talking about the song. There's a song now. It's like, I never thought the leopards would eat my face. You see that or whatever? And I said, oh yeah, that's an old tweet from back in the day. And the tweet says, I never thought the leopards would eat my face, sobs woman who voted for the leopards eating people's faces part. Like, oh yeah, I didn't know that, because I was like, oh yeah, that's a very old tweet. It goes way back. And so I'm glad to see that's entered modern lexicon, and that it's assumed to be like an old adage, but I mean, tweets are the modern day proverbs. They are, but yeah,
it really is. I thought it was like an old, not like fucking like from the Bible, but like I thought it was like,
it could be.
From just like academic literature, like some like person said it. So no, it's a fucking tweet. And I love, as we're talking about that, Mark says completely incompatible with America. Oof, that's a bad look for Christians and Republicans. Mark, I hate to tell it to you. I really hate to be the one.
Mark,
but it's the leopards eat your face party.
Mark,
this is what Republicans believe. Like, I don't know what you think Republicans believe, but this is what the Republican Party of the United States of America fundamentally believes.
Mark, I don't get it, man. You know this. Like, come on. Like, I was a Republican.
I don't think he does. I think there's a lot of Republicans who do not understand this.
This is like Republican. There's a reason that people always charge Republicans of being Christian nationalists, because they are. That's precisely what they are. It's important that the Bible specifically be taught in school, that we bring prayer back to school, that we have it. if they removed, I don't know, like Christian chaplains in the military, that we have religious symbolism. They're fighting for religious symbolism not because they care religion. They just want Christianity. They want Christianity to be the basis of our laws. Like, why do you think there's so many of them are against gay marriage or something like that? This is. Yeah, I don't understand. You're confusing there,
Yeah,
Mark.
Mark, I would really like to hear what you think the Republican Party stands for when it comes to religion, because they talk about it all. Like, I never hear a Republican when one Republican like praises God or says we have to do something because of God. I have never heard another Republican look at them and go, "You shouldn't say that. That is wrong. We should not be doing things because of God." I have never heard a Republican say that. I haven't heard many Democrats say that.
Yeah.
At least I've heard some of them say it. But like when you are in the party that has a fucking Nazi flag and no one is saying, "Hey, we should take that Nazi flag down," you're at a Nazi party. I hate to fucking tell you.
Yeah, Republicans, of course, don't have a monopoly, like John mentioned, on the exhorting a certain religion as the cause celeb. Like, this is what's really important for us, because Democrats do. Democrats are overwhelmingly Christian as well. This just that they're not quite as in your face about it, and a lot of Democrats are a little embarrassed by it for a lot of reasons. But yeah, it's just I feel like you always see these mega churches and stuff, and Republicans are always there. They're talking about, like, some of the biggest applause lines you'll ever hear from Donald Trump is "We're bringing back Merry Christmas," as if it went fucking anywhere. Yeah, I just don't I don't understand. But yeah, Vivek,
I'm interested to see how he answers this question.
All right, let's go.
I've had a lot harder challenges than this one, so don't pat yourself on the back too hard there. I don't want you to sprain your back with that one. I don't want anyone going home with the back sprain for that. So
we got the joke, Vivek. We got it.
Just level with you, man. You run for U.S. president at the age of 37 as somebody who's been in business, who's actually the easiest thing to call myself some Vic Ramsey and pretend to be a Christian. Got other people on that debate stage last time who shortened their names and called themselves to be a Christian too. I'm gonna man up and tell you who I am. And
all right, I'm gonna shit on Vivek later on, but I do remember that we did give him props for that, because honestly, I'm shocked that's not exactly what he did. That he didn't call himself Vic Ramsey and just go on stage and just jettison his Indian heritage, jettison his religion, because who gives a fuck? You can tell them they're Christians. It doesn't matter if you're not a Christian anyway, and roll with it. And a lot more guts than a certain other politician in the Republican Party who did exactly what he's talking about.
believe me, your suspicion is off base. Listen to any number of the campaign speeches I gave, over thousands of them over the course of the last year. So we can take the disingenuous accusation off the table, but level with what I do think is an interesting...
Forthcoming with that. You did not volunteer that information. It had to be pried out.
You
never volunteered that information.
So
you mentioned God.
That's actually that's actually false.
Omitted his name.
So let me know when you're done, and I can address your question. Good. So watch about the last presidential campaign of last year, and you apparently have had your head stuck in the sand, where it need not be belong. Now, what I think we need more of in our American politic is less of questioning the motivations of what somebody is and get to the content of where there's an actual difference of opinion. So the question of whether or not somebody of a non-Christian faith can embody and lead the United States of America at any meaningful level is an open question. Thomas Jefferson is on the other side of this question from you. Thomas Jefferson was not a traditional Christian. Do you know what the Jefferson Bible is? Exactly. Thomas Jefferson is a deist.
He's an enemy of Christianity.
So this is where we disagree, right? Is, as you heard, if you believe Thomas Jefferson is an enemy of Christianity because he is a deist, which is you can just bring the microphone so you can confirm that.
But
yes,
you're running for politics in America.
Right.
And the purpose of politics is the temporal good here on earth. Okay, we're talking about good, and that's an objective thing. So we need laws that are going to govern society.
So you and I have a different point of view on this, and I think that the only point I would make to those who are listening is students, and I'm glad you're stepping up and asking a challenging question. I would advise you to next time leave the disingenuous accusations of motivation to one side, because there's a more interesting exchange for us to have. If you believe that Thomas Jefferson as a deist is somebody who would have been unqualified to be U.S. president, then I guess you and I see the future of the United States of America differently. It so happens that he was the person who signed this document called the Declaration of Independence, which is the greatest mission statement known to a country in the history of mankind, without which the United States of America would not exist. He was the third U.S. president who signed the Lewis and Clark expeditions, without which we literally wouldn't have the United States of America. So if you view him as some type of deviant who should have never been in the U.S. presidency, that's a permissible point of view. It's just not one that I share. And my view is very similar to that of Thomas Jefferson, is that it's the commitment to the Constitution that matters whether or not you lead the country. But the beauty of our nation is that we're able to have different points of view and earnestly engage in an open exchange. And I come down on Thomas Jefferson's side of it, and if you're on a different side of it, the beauty of this country is we let you do that.
All right, John, what are your thoughts after seeing that? How do you think he handled it?
So I think I think rhetorically he handled that incredibly well. I thought it was a fantastic answer to a difficult question to answer in a tough position, and he nailed it. However, he didn't really address the question. He just said, hey, we have different viewpoints. That's okay. But he didn't address the argument being made that his viewpoint is wrong. He just said, hey, we got different viewpoints. But he didn't defend his position. He also didn't attack his opponent's position. He just said, live and let live, which I think is kind of emblematic of the problem that we were just talking about. And it kind of goes with Mark's response here. And Mark, I don't mean to get on you. We like you, Mark. But he says, no, I think you guys describe a Republican Party that isn't me. But I'm with Bill Buckley, Wall Street Journal Republican. We have Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus in the right. Free markets, free people. Correct. But you also have Christian nationalists. Those are not compatible views. You have, like this man who was just speaking, a fucking theological fascist. And you don't kick them out of your party. I never hear, and he also brings up Ben Shapiro. I never hear any mainstream Republicans saying this guy needs to be booed out of that conference room. Because if you are for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, if you are for tolerance, you cannot tolerate intolerance. It is the tolerance paradox. Because when the room is full of that guy, Vivek Ramaswamy has the fucking balls. He has the charisma. He has the money to be able to still be a man and profess his beliefs. And he could do that because he's extremely talented, he's extremely patient, and he's extremely fucking rich. But when you don't have those things, well, damn, suddenly you're going to start calling yourself Vic Ramsey. There's so many people throughout history who have done that. And the people who are causing that to happen are the people who aren't kicking the Christo-fascists out of their fucking party. And that's the problem. You can't be tolerant of intolerance if you actually want to promote tolerance.
Yeah, this is with what Mark said here. Shit, I don't know if to talk about Mark first or Vivek Ramaswamy. Well, I'll go with Vivek first. So yeah, Vivek's answer was interesting because he did something that is a smart move whenever you want to argue against Republicans. Because you got to realize that most conservatives and most Republicans have this reverence for the founding fathers that they won't dare attack. So if you bring up the fact that, well, Thomas Jefferson wasn't a Christian either, and are you saying Thomas Jefferson was a bad guy?
He bit the bullet. I like that he bit the bullet. I'm so glad that the guy bit the bullet and said, nah, he's a fucking enemy of Christianity. He's like, thank you. That's correct. We always say this. I respect that guy so much more.
Yes, yeah, it's a good idea. But he would have to argue that Thomas Jefferson was a bad president, and it's kind of hard to argue that, even if you want to look at it, from a personal point. But as far as like his withholding his performing his duties as the chief executive of the United States, kind of hard to say he fucked that up. So it certainly isn't necessary to be a Christian. And honestly, like I don't know when it comes to this, why they are so insistent upon this, despite the fact that everything we see in reality doesn't support this. It's just one of these things that you have to say. It's like a truism that it's true because it's true, and it doesn't really matter how much you work on it. But with Vivek, I do respect his ability to get up there and say, yeah, I am a Hindu, I have my religion, because the easiest thing to do would be to jettison this. I just don't know, like what Mark was talking about with, that's not my type of Republican. It's certainly the type of Republican that Turning Point USA is. Turning Point USA makes it very clear that they support Christian values. It's important that we instill Christian values and that we spread the message of Christianity throughout the nation. And I would be hard pressed to find any Republican organization that doesn't explicitly say otherwise. Like, I don't really understand. And I wanted to bring this up since I saw that Mark mentioned that he was a Bill Buckley Wall Street Journal conservative. I wanted to, oh, is this the one I had here? So I don't have the actual article in front of me, but what did William F. Buckley say about segregation? I wonder, Mark, if you can help me out on that one. Like, when the segregation issue came to light in the United States in the 1960s, when it was hot and heavy, when it was ready to go, what did William F. Buckley say? I'll tell you what he said. He said, well, I think segregation needs to stay temporarily, and then eventually we can find something better at some undetermined point. The exact same thing that slavers said in the South in the pre-Civil War days, that, well, I'm sure slavery won't be around forever, but getting rid of it now, that's too much change. They were conservatives after all. Where was William F. Buckley on the Vietnam War? Well, where? In fact, I'm curious what position, like what major positions in the 1960s that William F. Buckley had that you still hold. Because, I mean, the economic ones, I can assure you that's going to be pretty similar to the same one Republicans have, trickle-down economics. But when it comes to like the major battles, the major victories we won, William F. Buckley was consistently on the wrong side of history. It's just like if you want to find out, guys, you can Google the National Review William F. Buckley's article on segregation, or you can watch William F. Buckley's debates with civil rights activist James Baldwin at Cambridge University and listen to James Baldwin's pin drop speech on this. It's just that this is, Mark, you know us well enough by now to know what we're talking about here. It's just that when you look through history or whatever, it just nothing comports to reality in that actually supporting these folks gets us anywhere positive. I don't know where to go from there, but John, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's he also says, no, the tolerance and tolerance idea is just highbrow censorship. No, it is not, because I'm not talking about the government saying that you can't be a Christian nationalist. I agree. The government should allow people to be Christian nationalists. You shouldn't. You shouldn't tolerate Christian nationalism. Like, if someone is telling me, hey, I think that Jesus is the only true God, and I think everyone else is going to hell, and not a single one of them should be in a leadership position in the United States of America, I would tell that person to go fuck themselves. I wouldn't be like, hey, agree to disagree, bro. I'd be like, no, you're very wrong. I think you're a morally bad person, and I don't want to associate myself with you. That's what we do on the left, maybe to a fucking fault, TJ. Like the left is constantly infighting because we don't want to be associated with bad thought. We don't want to be associated with bad people. But my problem with the right is that they do. They're okay with that. They're okay with that guy being in their party. And it goes to the crux of the argument that Vivek is ignoring, is that this man thinks you are unqualified to be president. Your argument is, well, Thomas Jefferson was qualified, therefore I am. But that's not what his religion says. I don't know what the Hindu religion says about other religions. I honestly do not. But like, that's what all Christians believe if they are being honest with their fucking theology. Like, there's some who don't believe that, but then they aren't true Christians, and they don't fucking deserve to say that it should influence anything else in anybody's life. And it always puts me the wrong way when I see someone like Vivek back down like that, because it is disingenuous of Vivek. As much as it is, and we have praised him for keeping his tradition, his culture, his values, I think it is wrong for him to be Hindu. Just like I think it's wrong for that guy to be Christian. I think religion is wrong. And if you're going to say religion isn't wrong, and in fact, it is a good thing, you have to also admit that that Christian nationalist is advocating for the same shit you are. And that guy wants you dead. I don't understand how those two thoughts exist in someone's mind at the same time.
I don't know. So when it comes to like religion, I'm as against religion as anybody. I think it's absurd. Like there could theoretically be a religion that's not harmful, I suppose. It's just
I
like
don't
if
think
you,
there can, TJ.
well, so
I
it
think the
depends.
fundamental premise of faith is harmful to humans. If you
Well,
have faith, it's wrong.
Well, a religion doesn't necessitate a deity, right? So like you could be like Buddhists don't believe in God in the way that we do or something. They do have a lot of mystical shit like that, but I can see as a religion that you could make a tenet of religion like, hey, there's no deities out there, and the belief that we practice, like humanism, which is not a religion, but anyway, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But uh, I wasn't going with this. Oh, Christians, like the no true Christian thing. I wouldn't say that either, because there are Christian universalists. There are people who believe that the blood of Christ was a universal atonement and that everyone's going to heaven. Now, I do have to wonder what's the point of being a Christian if that's the case. Like if it doesn't matter what religion you worship and you're going to heaven, and a lot of Christians are heading toward them. Then some Christians believe that you'll go to hell before a temporary time.
My thing with that, TJ, is that you're just like, what is this based on then?
Well,
like, if you're not basing it on the Bible and the Word of God, you're just making shit up. Just admit it. You're just like, I wish to believe this because it makes me happy.
Oh, I agree. But the rest of it,
that's what I mean by a true Christian.
Yeah,
truly based on Christian facts.
But there's no such thing though. There's no such thing truly based on it, because the Bible is contradictory and said and written by dozens of people over hundreds of years. So there are passages in the Bible that say, God has predestined everything. He has the foreknowledge. He knows who will be saved. He has chosen who's going to heaven. And then there's some whosoever will may come. Like there's a direct contradiction there in a lot of different Christian beliefs. So, if you want to pick one that fits you, it's what everybody else does. And so I hesitate to say that they can't be true Christians, because that's kind of no true Scotsman-y. I think the only thing you could say that would disqualify you from being a Christian is like, I don't follow the teachings of Christ. Like, okay, that's his name's in the title. Like it kind of has to be there. Like if I just reject Jesus' existence. I reject his teachings, everything.
I'm a huge MCU fan. I just don't like superheroes.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's like the only test you could possibly make of someone being a true Christian. Anything after that is completely up for grabs. But I wanted to share this right here. I was looking for this. Like, this is a survey from a year and a half ago. More than half of Republicans support Christian nationalism, and it's like, yeah. Is that a surprise to anybody? Like, is that a shock to anyone out there at all? That of course Republicans support Christian nationalism. It's what really gets them going. It's what motivates them to go out to school boards. It's what motivates them to get rid of any queer. What is Republicans' problem with gay people? What is it? Well, what is it? It's not the fact that two men love each other is hurting them in any way. It's not the fact that they make up the fact that they're predators. There's no records, no stats to verify this belief whatsoever. It's rooted in Christian theology, and a specific type of Christian theology. And it's like, yeah, we just God says you shouldn't do it, and so they move heaven and earth. They spent the better part of 2 decades now fighting gay people. Republicans lost their fucking mind because there was one trans person who held up a beer can for like 6 months. For like 6 months, that has nothing to do with anything except for religious bigotry on the part of Republicans. Let's see.
So Mark and Kyle are making interesting arguments here. So Kyle brought up Buddhism, and you also brought up Buddhism. So I want to say I really fucking like Buddhism as a system, a belief system. I think it's one of the best of the religions, mostly because it doesn't center around a god. But like, my problem with religion, and Mike brought it up too here, like, is Thomas Jefferson also a bad person? I don't think religion makes you a bad person. I think there's many good people who are religious. I think that having a belief system that something is always true and can never change is inevitably going to lead to more pain and suffering than believing that everything can be changed if faced enough evidence that it is wrong. Buddhism kind of works in a way where it's only personal. So in that sense, hey, you go at it. You're going to be proven right, or you are eventually going to be proven right, or you'll never know you are wrong. And if it makes you happy, it makes you happy. That's totally fine with me. But like that's not how most religions function, because religions that function like that don't spread.
Yeah, they have a hard time processing. Yeah, I don't know much about Buddhism either. I don't know a whole lot. I know that there's like they have like this divine spark thing that's that's within us all, and the meditation, the kind, and seeking nirvana, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not. Where did you read a comment of someone asking if Thomas Jefferson was a bad person, or did you just bring that up? Because I don't see the comment over here.
Mark said that, like Thomas Jefferson is a bad
Also,
person.
we can continue to find fault with all sorts of previous leaders that they don't hold to our views.
Well, first of all, Thomas Jefferson, in my opinion, was a bad person because he raped children.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a baseline, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
But that's kind of neither here. He could have still been a good president.
Right,
You can do a lot of goddamn awful things and still be a good president. I don't really have an opinion on the Thomas Jefferson presidency. I'm not very well studied on it.
Yeah.
But I doubt he was one of the bad, or relatively one of the bad ones.
Hard to say Jefferson was a bad president. Like,
Yeah.
really difficult to say that. He was. There's a reason he's on Mount Rushmore and the $2 bill, whatever, and that he's revered among the founders. Now, one thing with history that John and I talk about a lot is, honestly, it's not just history, and this goes to what you're talking about, the left too, and how we have this overly judgmental problem, not just with everyone in general, but amongst ourselves, is that we tend to put people into good person, bad person boxes, and then it really stifles. Once, it's a childish way to look at history or reality, but it stifles conversation, because if this would work on most Republicans. Vivek was right to do this, to say, oh, well, what about Thomas Jefferson? It didn't happen to work on this guy, but 9 out of 10 times it would have worked, where he says, oh, well, you think Jefferson's a bad guy? So, well, of course Jefferson wasn't a bad guy. Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson was a slave owner, and they love that shit. So this would actually work on most people, but you can't look at things that way, because what ends up happening is, like, you have Abraham Lincoln, who's put in the good person box, and you're like, oh yeah, and so you grow up your whole life thinking Abe Lincoln, good person. It's synonymous, essentially. And then someone comes along and says, well, Abe Lincoln was responsible for the largest mass execution of Native Americans in U.S. history, and people's immediate response to that information is to fight back and say, oh, well, I'm sure there was a good reason, or, well, you can't, why are you attacking Lincoln? Instead of just processing and say, okay, Lincoln did some things which were good. He also did some things that were bad, just like anybody, just like everybody. Now, you judge people by the actions they made and its effects on their society and on the world and upon history in general. But there is no good person and no bad person. That kind of person doesn't exist. But Jefferson's a good example of that, because people automatically default. They don't know shit about Thomas Jefferson. They just know he wrote the Declaration. Maybe they might know he authored the Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom, which was the foundation for the First Amendment. They might know about, I don't know, the Louisiana Purchase, the oil embargo, the Barbary pirates.
You are going way, like, you're going to, like, maybe 8% of people.
Yeah, but all of those are just actions he took as a politician. And then you took his personal actions. Okay, these were horrendous. You don't got to judge, him as an individual and you don't have to take your evaluation of things he did through all of those lenses. You can take those individually and move on from there. But people don't seem to do that.
So Mark also brought up, and Mark, I really hope you don't feel like we're picking on you. Because we're not. I'm actually genuinely interested, because you're okay. So first he says, and nothing's stopping you from holding Republican ideas, right? I mean, I'm sure there are right-wing ideas that you like. It depends how you define left and right wing. You said to Kyle, you don't see equality as a left-wing position fighting against injustice. But you know who did see equality as a left-wing position? Buckley, who you said was in your tent.
That's
Republican.
True. He did say that.
He saw the equality
word
of black people as a left-wing position. He was against equality, straight up, verbatim. And like you see that time and time again, the people who are against equality, if you look back at history, 90% of the time, they're right wingers. And there's a reason for that.
Or at least they're right wing in the context of the society in which they live. Yeah, because like you can look back on someone who was a left winger in the 40s and they would be a right winger today if they held that position. But at the time, hell, the founders were left wingers in the position, during their time. So that's
exactly.
true.
And he brought up the CATH word. And this Mark, I gotta fight you tooth and nail on. Maybe you're not Roman Catholic. I don't know. Maybe you went to some Roman Catholic church that like I didn't fucking go to. But my Roman Catholic church were definitely fucking Christian nationalists. My priest got up on that fucking pulpit and advocated for political positions based on the Bible. He literally told us who to vote for because gay people are bad and evil. Like, that is what happened in my fucking Catholic church. And it's one of the many reasons I left my Catholic church. And it always blows my mind, and this is what always confuses me, as to how seemingly pro-equality conservatives will form a tent with people who are fundamentally against equality, who truly believe that the government should follow the Christian faith. Not even like, hey, we should follow these general tenets to live by. No, specifically the Christian faith. You have dozens of Republican politicians who say that verbatim. And as I said, I never hear Republicans like yourself push back on them. I never hear you call them Christian nationalists. I never hear you tell them get the fuck out of our party. Because I do that to the fucking the moderate Democrats. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I don't want to associate with you. I may vote for the same person for president, but we are not the same. I say that all the time. And I never hear that coming from the vast majority of Republicans when it comes to the Christian nationalists who swarm your party.
Yeah, I didn't. I always assumed that Catholics were. Then again, I grew up Protestant, so I always assumed Catholics were a little bit more liberal than us. But on the abortion thing, I imagine they definitely would fall more in line with that. And I do think it's funny, though, bringing up Catholics as an example of, fair-minded Christians. I don't know if you guys are history buffs now or anything, but if you read what the Catholic Church has done over the last 2,000 years, it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty at all. Catholics spent the better part of 2 millennia having no issue at all killing you if you disagreed with their specific interpretation of the Bible, even if you were a different Christian. Different type. Those were some of their favorite people to kill. Were different types of Christians. They couldn't wait to get around to it. So, but that just goes back to our John and I's whole thing that religion is nonsense and it's used to bully people. I don't know. What do we have here? Red Scare Claire says, "Yep, I literally had that thought the other day. People are complex and do both good and awful things."
It's funny, like she says that, and it sounds almost dumb. It sounds like almost something a dumb person would say. Like, yeah, of course, bro. But actually, that's probably a minority belief.
Yeah.
It seems so obvious, but that not many people actually view the world that way.
It's true. It's true. People, they love we do it to people we know in our day-to-day lives. That's a good person. That's a bad person. It's it's not that simple. It doesn't really work that way. Mark says, "Guys, it's fine. I'm quite comfortable chatting with you guys. It's no attack. We appreciate it." Mark, I haven't heard back about your thoughts on William F. Buckley, though. I did ask that question about 20 minutes ago. You brought him up, not me. I'm just saying. That's just let's see. "We can define the left as a loose collection of liberating impulses, freeing people from systems of hierarchy is the definition of political equality and its left opposition." Yeah, so what I always say in defining left and right, if you guys want to know the actual origin of left and right, it goes back to the French Revolution, and when the Estates General met the people who when the revolution was occurring, the group sat on two sides of the speaker. The group that supported the monarchy sat on the right side of the room, and the group that supported, the revolution sat on the left side of the room. That is where we get our foundational concepts of left and right wing, because, conservatives love hierarchy, and that's what it's always been about. Conservatism is all about the preservation of hierarchies, and left wing is about disaggregation of hierarchies. That's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely nailed that, and that like hierarchy is the key point, and
Mm-hmm.
it truly does define across the political spectrum. Because they're like tankies who fucking believe in hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I find myself to agree with them less than I do with fucking liberals, you know, and it's just like, yeah, that need for hierarchy is really what defines left wing versus right wing. And as long as there is hierarchy, by default, there cannot be equality. Like it just, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's why so many of us are anti-capitalist, because honestly, conservatism is kind of at odds with democracy. It really is, which is, I mean, they tell you this all the time. How many times do you hear conservatives say, well, this isn't a democracy, this is a republic, when it's both? When it's both, just so you guys know, if you hear someone say this, ask them to define the word republic. What does republic mean? They probably won't be able to tell you. But a republic is essentially a system of government in which there's a representative for a group of people, which is either, you know, appointed or elected or, you know, whatever, like however the representative got there, I am speaking for X number of people. That is a republic. And a democracy is a system in which the powers of the people and the people vote. We elect our representatives through democratic means. There's no separation of this, but they act like it's some kind of clever gotcha. But with the reason that some of us are anti-capitalist is that the way Republicans or conservatives will argue for capitalism is that this is kind of democratic, because if you want to buy widgets from someone, and John and I are both selling widgets, and neither of us have an advantage, we're both selling widgets. Whoever makes the best widgets, well, people will vote with their dollars. But here's the thing. If you have more dollars, you get more votes. And that fucks up the entire system. Like, our democratic system to elect people into office wouldn't work if I had 1 million votes and John has 2,000 votes. It doesn't work. But that's exactly how capitalism works, that you can play the market, and then once I get an advantage, I'm going to use those votes to assess more power for myself and squeeze John out, and the goal is a monopoly. We don't think that should exist, because I think we've seen the effects of the damage that could cause. What do we have here? What do you want me to do, John? I mean, I'm saying it on a globally popular podcast. You wait. Just you wait. Kyle, I mean the party that freed the slaves, right? Mark, no. Mark, I refuse to believe. Mark, there's no fucking way. Hold on, what did Kyle say? Hold on. Oh, yeah. So the Republicans of the 1860s that were the radical Republicans that the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the Republicans that fought in the war that the Republicans of today despise, like they're always flying the Confederate flags and sucking the dick of Confederate generals and talking about states' rights, the same thing the Confederates said in the 1860s, in no way resembles the Republicans Party of today. None whatsoever. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're going to say that, well, they're Republicans, so they must have been, on my side of the aisle. Do you know a guy named Karl Marx? You ever heard of a guy named Karl Marx? Because I'll tell you who was a big fan of the Republicans in the 1860s, Karl Marx. Karl Marx wrote 2 letters to Abraham Lincoln, saying, the first letter saying, hey, I love what you're doing here. I think your whole charge to free slaves is great. It's fantastic. And then after his re-election, I think his words were, if the initial cry of your campaign was to reunify the Union, the second one is death to slavery. Karl Marx loved the fact that Lincoln talked about labor. Marx was a fan of the Republican Party. So if you're going to say that those Republicans are your boys, you're going to say you're a fan of Karl Marx too. I don't think you'd have it both ways.
He does address Buckley right above that.
Oh, I see. Buckley changed. Listen. I knew you'd say this. I knew you'd say this. Not the first time I've had this conversation. Buckley changed his views. Everyone knows that. Read his some speeches when he was running for mayor. Read his National Review articles. Again, well, I reference his National Review article. His National Review article says, yeah, slavery needs to stick around. Again, I said dumb stuff back in the day too. Did you ever say segregation was a good idea? That's what I want to, now that you're bringing this up. So this is the pattern you'll see with Republicans. Well, actually, not just Republicans, but a lot of conservatives in general.
You see it with a hell of a lot of people.
You do. Is that when something is like controversial, when it's in the shit, when it's time to stand up, make a bold move, the William F. Buckley will be like, the Southerners got a point. I think that we should stick around segregation. Then when they fucking lose, then when it's done, then when the Civil Rights Act is passed, segregation is illegal, then years later, they're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I was wrong. Well, thanks. We're really grateful for that. The same thing Republicans do with the fucking Iraq war is that I was there. I remember Republicans called you the worst names in the book. They questioned your patriotism, questioned your courage, questioned your manhood, questioned your sanity. If you ever said something like, well, maybe this war is a bad idea. Now it's, oh yeah, it's a bad idea. Nah, big deal. That's what I'm saying. I don't give a shit if William. Go ahead.
TJ, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not a William Buckley scholar. Maybe you don't know the answer to this. But what I often see from the people who do this sort of thing is, oh, I guess I was wrong because the results told me I was wrong. They never say that the process was wrong. They never go, my entire philosophy and worldview that led me to this conclusion was wrong. They say, my conclusion was wrong because it was proven wrong. Did Buckley say that his worldview was incorrect? He should have stood up for against segregation back then? I don't just say the anti-segregationists ended up being proven correct.
Yeah, I don't know like his exact rationalization of why he said, well, I was wrong about segregation. Or I don't know if he said he was wrong, but he did retract it. So actually, integration is a good idea, but it's only after they lose. Is the point that it's whenever it's like they did this with gay marriage for about 10 years until now, where it's coming around. Where the favorite thing they would say is like, oh well, no one ever cared about that. Yes, you fucking did. You guys marched in the street for this shit. And I have no patience for that. Is that whenever it really fucking matters, like when it's actually important to make a moral decision, where conservatives will always revert to the side of evil every single time. Yeah.
All right, TJ, we got to wrap this up here.
We do.
What are we talking about tomorrow?
Oh, I had a topic written down and I couldn't remember it. I couldn't. Well, one I want to talk about is the early voting results. I remember that. And they're not looking great, honestly, so far, the early voting. But there was one more that I should have wrote down, but I couldn't remember. And I want to go over see if I can remember it. What two did you
So I want to cover, we kind of sort of threatened to stop giving arms to Israel, and they kind of sort of said that they would change their behavior. And I think that's a great fucking thing to talk about. Did you see that?
Yeah. The 30-day Biden thing.
Exactly, yeah. So we can talk about that. And I also just want to talk about Trump's, the week that Trump has had with his musical concert. With his saying that, I don't care what the tariffs are. 200, 500 doesn't matter. He's just had a magical week of rhetoric here. The enemy within statements. I think it can all just be covered in one big topic of all the crazy shit Trump said this week.
Yes, I love that because there's so much to go over there. Like Trump, listen, if Donald Trump is elected president next month, look, we get what we fucking deserve. We do. I mean, there's no doubt of what Trump is. I remember the other topic now. Elon Musk's event for the cyber taxi. Did you see that?
The
robo taxi.
I saw like he had the fucking iRobot robot.
Yes, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We can do that.
John, it's great. It's great. There's so much to go over here. I can't wait to do that. But I've been planning this one since a couple days ago.
It's Elon. It's the Trump week.
Yep.
Israel. What's the fourth one?
Early voting.
Okay,
yep.
There we go.
And tomorrow our guest is Cannon's fodder tomorrow. I asked her. I don't know. Let's see. She messaged back about a topic that she was talking about. She said she'll be here. But if we have a fifth one from her, we can probably squeeze that in too. But all right. We will catch you guys tomorrow.
See you guys.
All right. Let's close this bad boy out.